I'm just doing a very quick service of the steering relay. At this point in time, I'm not looking at pulling this apart, but just effectively to put some oil through it again. So what I've done is I've removed two of the bolts on the top, and I figured out that on the bottom, that one there is the drain hole. So if we were to look at it from the perspective of where these bolts go through the frame, and I look it up here, it's the one that's facing where the holes aren't. So it's on that using my great vise, I'm just holding it there in position. I've got this pump in which this metal nozzle actually fits quite nicely in there. So it's just a matter of fitting that in there, and then I'm just pumping it. And I'm going to continue pumping it until I'm actually doing on both sides, but I'm just going to continue pumping that until I start seeing it drip on the bottom. I'll try to do this one-handed. So I've got that in there. I'm just going to squeeze that, and you'll see that it'll come out almost on both. So I just continue squeezing. There you go. You see, that's why you need to have both of them open, because the air needs to escape somewhere. And there we go, starting to leak from the bottom. I'll continue doing this a bit more. I'll get the handbrake out of the way. I'll continue doing this a bit more so I can try to get rid of all the crud. I mean, it's actually quite clean. The table's dirty, obviously, but that's quite clean. So I'll press on doing that. So basically I've turned it upside down again. So, you know, give it a bit of an option. And I'll put it back the right way around. I'm going to continue doing this because if I pour that over, you can see how the oil is actually kind of mixed with crud. So it's definitely flushing things away, but it's going to take a bit longer, you see. That's actually pretty dirty. But if I do it from the other end, where I've been pouring it in, it's actually cleanish. So the first thing is that I'll put the light on here. The first thing is that I noticed the drain plug is actually on that axis here, not on the one that is facing where the head bolts or nuts go. So it's on that axis. So I took one out. Then whichever one I took out, I can't remember, it's one of those two anyway. I took out the top one so that both were facing up, and then as I was pumping the oil in through here, it was obviously trying to fill up all this, and I waited until it was actually purging out from here, flowing out quite well. Then I put that bolt back in, then I stood it up, then took the other bolt out. So then I had both of those bolts out, and then I kept filling it up. And what I did at the end was I actually just really pumped in quite a bit of oil. It was all messy, it was all flowing, but there was a lot of air coming out from this other side. So yes, a little bit of wastage doing that way, but at least you know, firstly you're giving it a good flush. Now, I've got a funny feeling I'm probably going to end up having to redo this whole exercise again, because the fact of the matter was this unit was completely dry, and there can only be one reason, and that's because it's leaking through the seals. But at the very least, what I'll do now is, because I've got oil in it, I will now position it upright overnight, and then I'll check over the next following days to see if it's actually leaking from under here, which I suspect it will be. But that's okay. It gives a little bit of lubrication inside anyway to begin with, and if I need to pull it apart, well, that'll help. So anyway, that was my way of doing things. Quite interesting. There's a whole lot of information, I suppose, depending on the year of your Rover. Mine being an early 60s, 63, 64. As I said, the drain plug is actually on that axis here. Okay, and subsequently I pulled the 2 top bolts out on the same axis as well. Hopefully that's helped you out. In terms of the tools, as I said, I just used this aluminium fitting on here, which actually fitted perfectly inside the threads, thread holes, and of course being aluminium it's not going to damage the threads. And the rate of pump for this was actually sufficient to cause an overflow, but I could also graduate it so that it wasn't. So anyway, having those little tools helps. Okay, well, I'll leave it at that, and as always, thanks very much for watching.